What would happen if Trump is found guilty in the hush money case? A procession of witnesses, 12 jurors, a judge who is frequently irate, and 34 charges. Both the prosecution and the defense have given up on Donald Trump's historic hush money lawsuit after almost 5 weeks. On Tuesday, the jury will hear closing statements before beginning its deliberations. After then, it's anyone's guess as to when and what they'll decide to return. However, Mr. Trump would become the first major party candidate to run for president as a felon, and the first former U.S. president with a criminal record if he were found guilty on even one count, just one of several possible possibilities. What occurs if the verdict is guilty? Given that Mr. Trump was released on bail during the trial, he will most likely be permitted to leave the courtroom free of charge until Judge Juan Merchan calls a sentence session. When determining a sentence, the judge will take into account a number of issues, such as Mr. Trump's age, 77, his lack of prior convictions, and the possibility that he violated the court's gag orders. A fine, probation, or monitoring, or even jail time could be part of the penalty. It is highly likely that Mr. Trump will file an appeal in the event of a guilty decision, which could take many months or perhaps longer. After that, his defense team would have to contend with the Manhattan Appellate Division and perhaps the Court of Appeals. All of this suggests that it is extremely improbable that Mr. Trump will leave the courtroom in handcuffs and that he will be allowed to depart on bond in order to pursue his appeal. What would an appeal be based on? One explanation would be Stormy Daniels' evidence, an adult film star whose purported sexual encounter with Mr. Trump is at the center of the investigation. Professor Anna Kaminsky of New York Law School stated, "The level of detail that was provided by Miss Daniels is really not necessary to the telling of the story. As a prosecutor, you want to give the jury enough information to find her trustworthy, but on the other side, her detail lends credibility to her testimony. However, there's a point at which it might start to become biased and irrelevant." During Miss Daniels' evidence, Mr. Trump's defense team made 2 moves for a mistrial, which the judge dismissed. Is Trump facing jail time? In the improbable event that Mr. Trump is found guilty, it is feasible that he would go to jail. In New York, Class E felonies are the lowest level of the legal system, and he is facing 34 charges total. The maximum punishment for each crime is 4 years. Given Mr. Trump's age, his clean record, and the fact that the allegations are related to a non-violent offense, Justice Merchan may opt to impose a lighter sentence. Additionally, the judge can decide not to imprison a former president and current candidate in light of the case's unique circumstances. The issue of practicality also arises. Like all previous presidents, Mr. Trump is entitled to Secret Service protection for the rest of his life. This implies that he would require protection in jail from a few agents. Still, managing a jail system with a former president as an inmate would probably be quite challenging. Ensuring his safety would pose a significant danger to security and costly. The security of the facility and controlling expenses are the 2 things that prison systems are concerned with, stated Justin Papany, director of the prison consulting company White Collar Advice. That would be a freak show with Mr. Trump. No warden would permit it, he remarked. Is he able to seek the presidency again? Indeed. Only 3 minimal prerequisites are outlined in the U.S. Constitution for presidential candidates. They must be at least 35 years old, citizens of the U.S. by birth, and have been residing in the country for at least 14 years. There are no regulations prohibiting applicants with a criminal history. However, a guilty decision can still influence the presidential race in November. According to a study conducted earlier this year by Bloomberg and Morning Consult, 53% of voters in crucial swing states said they would not support the Republican if he was proven guilty. This month, a different Quinnipiac University survey revealed that 6% of Trump supporters would be less inclined to support him, which is significant in such a close contest. Might he forgive himself? No. Presidents have the authority to pardon people who have broken the law. Since the New York hush money lawsuit is a state affair, Mr. Trump cannot influence it. The same is true for Mr. Trump's Georgia case, where he faces charges of illegally arranging to thwart President Joe Biden's tight victory in the state in the 2020 election. Appeals are presently involved in this case. Regarding Mr. Trump's two federal cases, one on alleged mishandling of confidential data and the other on plotting to rig the 2020 election, pardon powers are not evident. In the first, a Florida judge selected by Trump has indefinitely delayed the trial, stating that it would be imprudent to set a date before addressing issues with the evidence. The second unresolved federal lawsuit was likewise postponed while Mr. Trump's appeal was being processed. Although it is unlikely that either will happen before the November election, constitutional experts debate as to whether the president is included in the pardon power. Perhaps Mr. Trump will try first.